So maybe Mario Kart, maybe a go-kart metaphor is better for this. Like it's fine. Welcome.
That's where Dowd's nickname of the human blue shell comes from.
That's right.
That's
right.
Yeah.
From Mario Kart.
And now he's one of those bombs with eyes after going through all the technical difficulties.
Oh man. Yep, it worked. All right, good.
So we're here. When we say we're coming to you live, like we'll be here. We'll be here. It's fine.
Yeah,
it's
we will
fine.
Eventually come to you live. That's true.
Plus or minus 30-ish minutes. It's okay. It's totally fine. My name's Anish. Hello, everybody. We got Boiler Dowd on the line.
Hi.
He's in a good mental space.
In a great space.
It's great. We're late because he was doing some yoga. He was getting in his right frame of mind. He was calming himself. Exactly. He was getting good. It wasn't technical difficulties. There are rumors out there. Don't worry about it. Don't pay attention to those.
Technology is never a problem for Handsome Hour, Basketball Beat, any of these entities that you guys have come to know and love. It's just not an issue.
And from his Texas Ranch airplane hangar, it's Michael, or the Railroad Tie, on Twitter. Hello, Michael.
Good evening, fellas.
J Money needs his beauty rests, and so that's we're letting him.
He's in the margin.
Of course he is, because why would he be sleeping when he could be working? But he does have our back. He just has his back. So right. I'll just put up, I have control of the comments here. Oh no, is Jay's okay? He's elderly and fragile. I like this one. He's the older of the two of you?
I'm the older. I got him.
We're not going to count that. We're not going to count that. We're going to subtract it. We're going to call him the older one.
Okay, let's do it. He's in an airplane. This is neat. Through the modern marvel of technology, he is. What our planes are any place between 35 and 90,000 feet. Is that in the range? Is that right?
Isn't it like 30,000?
You could have said numbers, and I probably would have agreed.
So Jay is 35,000 feet above the planet, listening to the Handsome Hour, as you guys all are.
It's modern marvels of technology are that you can sit in a tube in the air, fly from major metropolitan area to major metropolitan area on a supercomputer in your pocket.
Right.
Connected to a worldwide network of information. And what J Money does is stream the three of us morons that he listens to every day.
That's awesome. He's on his private Gulfstream. That is correct.
He apparently hasn't beaten his pilot enough to where he's installed Wi-Fi
that he could jump in, right?
Jump in.
Exactly. It's because the podcasting equipment isn't there. That's the major problem. The recording studio is not quite set up yet.
Did Michael get an intro? Did you give him an intro? I know
I gave him an intro, but who cares?
Okay.
So we are here. We were complimenting your shirt earlier, Boiler Dad. This is why you got to watch it on the YouTubes. The royal script, the perfect black and gold. It's great. Well done.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you it's a Martin Minute shirt. It's not. I've had it for quite a few years. It's made different appearances on QuickCast. It's probably my favorite shirt, but it's close to the end. I mowed lawn in it today, and it's been downgraded. You know what I mean? Like if I raise my arm, it's pitted out. Honestly, so yeah,
it looks good on the cast. That's what you should just keep it for this.
That's all that matters.
Exactly.
Yeah. And speaking of t-shirts, Martin Vintage, head over to Martin Vintage, martinvintage.com, enter Boiled checkout, get 15% off. They don't have this shirt, but they've got a lot of cool stuff. And we've got other sponsors. You've got the Boiled Sports OnlyFans site.
Exactly. Boiled Sports Fans Only store, where you can get this beautiful mug that we aluminum mug that we gifted to somebody who jumped my car because J Money and I went. Shout out to Merrick. His handle, his name is Merrick, and his handle on Twitter is _Merrick _. Fantastic, tremendous. He's one of us.
Yeah, and then of course you guys made an appearance at our one of our main sponsors, AJ's.
We were at AJ's,
and many people told me they shot. You would think AJ's had like 7,000 seats, because I literally got people like texting me, "Hey, guess who I just saw? And I wasn't even on campus yet. You guys were munching in AJ's and
we were walking up to AJ's. And there was like a huge line outside, and we were like, wow, it's crazy for AJ's just to organize this for us. Right. It's great. Right. Turns out Drew Brees and Kelly Kitchell are opening. It was
about 15 feet away, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and so Drew was like right outside. And so I kind of walked up and said, hey, like, what's the crowd? And, who's opening this? And I didn't realize that the restaurant was the players that were doing it. I knew that they opened the, they had a bar down at the Levee, I think, or a restaurant down at the Levee. They had another one somewhere else. And so this is, I think, their second or third place.
I think Lafayette. Drew is going to own like all of Lafayette and West Lafayette.
Makes sense. It makes sense. He's got the money.
His plan is,
well, don't worry, Anish. We can all rest assured that even though Drew and Kelly got the big crowd there, all the women in their 40s that were there for you.
We were there. Hey,
the legend continues.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to everybody that said hi. Shout out to Merrick, who jumped my car because J Money and I were too busy looking into each other's eyes at the tailgate while charging our phones in my car that wasn't turned on. And I was like, we could do. In my head, I was like, even if we forget about this, like there are Purdue fans all around us, so it's fine.
It'll be fine.
But Merrick brought one of those little guys that jump starts a car, and so we gifted him one of these, which you should get, these cups that nobody can see what you're drinking in this. So for me, it's ice water today.
Yep. I'm actually in just a plain old stainless steel.
See, look at how sad that looks. Look at how sad all of your things
yours.
Look. This
isn't insulated. Yours is insulated.
This could be just a normal, normal cup that you pour things into, or it's a can koozie. Boom. You should get one. It says it's black and gold.
Try to fit a can in that.
You can't fit a can in it. You can, but it's very uncomfortable. We saw you guys at the game. We were there with the Dowd clan. It was nice to see the whole Dowd clan there.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I had this stupidity about me. I was like, I just saw those guys last year. No. It had been since 3 years, 2019.
2019 was the last time we saw each other.
And all of us, Michael, you were there last time. I think a football game. We were the four of us, and did we see Dave? Was that
I think we saw, or we walked with Dave up to the up to the stadium that year.
Yeah, that was a big one, and I think we might do it again this year. Michael,
is there a
chance that you
get homecoming?
Sure. I'm trying to make it for homecoming.
Awesome.
Just always tease it. Don't worry about don't worry about definite plans.
Right.
But
that's a big deal, guys. Let me get out of this. Like, that's a big deal. Seriously. I mean, that's an end of a really crappy era. Not getting to see you guys every year. That's lousy. Right. And so this was fun. I mean, obviously we all hate to see Purdue lose, but it's all about right there, man. Seeing you guys, hanging out with you at the game, it was great.
We were there on campus all day. I mean, if you're away from campus for a couple years, it's like, I mean, everything is changing. It's so great. Like, it's so awesome to see it. And it's great seeing people kind of out there, and it was a beautiful day. And so honestly, Purdue looked fine. Like, Purdue looked pretty good against a pretty good team. And so it's it's good. We, Mrs. Boiler Dowd saved my phone on multiple occasions because I was getting boisterous. But that's what
was
happens.
Getting away, wasn't it? Yeah.
It can't. It was sliding. It happens.
Yeah.
But it was good to see everybody. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome, and obviously Purdue couldn't close it out. I would say to call that one. To use an old one, to call that game winnable is not giving enough credit. The game was in hand.
One. Yeah, well, so here's the thing is that the reason that we're so mad is because it was like the game that Purdue should have had a win against a pretty good solid team. In the like at home to kick off the season, outside of the easy part of the schedule, right? And so that's a good reason. Like, upon reflection, after cooling down for a couple of days, that's a good reason to be mad, right? It means that there's, it means that there's going to be that there's still a good foundation that you're building on, right? We always talk about that as like, what are you building on,
Right on. And so I came into the game, I think if we can do this since Jay's in the margin here. I don't know if he's listening still up in the the ether. But he was the only guy who had the confidence that Purdue was going to win going in. Good on him. I will never discourage someone for being optimistic. I hope, I feel that good coming into other games. I feel good this week. Yeah, he was confident. I don't think any of the rest of us were. And the way I look at it, I want to ask you, and I don't know if Michael can hear us right now. In the wake of what we saw, in the way Purdue lost the game, in the way they played the game, let's review a few things. O'Connell passed for just over 50% completion, not very Aiden O'Connell like. The receivers, which we all thought might take a little bit of time for them to find their roles. That we saw shades of that. Defense missed some key tackles. But at the end of the game, Jeff Brohm, I still think this one's around his neck a little bit because he's talked about running the ball all season. And then when they really needed to run it, he ran it one time in the last 12. He called one run play in 12 plays. So to me, that's him. And I'm not a person, none of us on this, just to be very clear, nobody on this podcast, nobody really at Boiled Sports at all was even sniffing towards being angry at him. To the point where we'd be like, like burn it down, anything. We just are calling it as we see it. And I think we're all in accord there. But after you see the loss, the way it came down, does anything change in the way you see the season unfolding?
No. So the season unfolding, no, but there are pieces that surprised me for the better, and there are pieces that are worse than I thought, right? And they're small, but like overall, I think it's still like the expectation of something like 8 wins in the regular season is like still there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so I had to go off camera for a second because a hummingbird literally fell from the ceiling. That's what I was holding up to the camera. I had to go put him outside. I don't know. He's probably not going to survive the night, but I did my best. But on the Purdue
just front, hold on. Wait a minute. Just fell?
Just fell. So hummingbirds expend a lot of energy, right?
Right.
And I have these two like
feeders,
aluminum doors that I like, garage doors in my shop, and sometimes they fly in here and they can't find their way out. So poor guy was exhausted.
Man, so that was me on Friday. That was me on Friday.
To the question though, I think we talked about this during the last podcast, which was win or lose. Like, we can learn a lot about this team, but losing doesn't change the trajectory of the season. And I still believe that because this is one of Purdue's tougher games this season. And week 1 is always weird. And, I think they played well. They made mistakes. I'm not a huge fan of the coaching down the stretch, but I sort of get it at least a little bit.
And I'm again, we're all fine with the aggressive kind of play calling, right? You'd rather lose aggressive than lose passive, right?
Yeah. So Brohm talked a little bit about this. He was asked pretty pointedly, not only in his post-game presser, but his Tuesday presser, I guess. And then again on his show, people asked over and over and over about play calling. You could tell he's bristling a little bit and he's digging his heels in. And what he keeps saying, I don't know if you've heard it. He keeps saying, yeah, we were moving the ball. And I think he's referenced to the fact that Sheffield had that 15-yard gain. And he really thinks that if O'Connell would have just kind of not, I still don't understand that pass, how badly it came out of his hands to Durham.
Mm-hmm.
But number one, I think Brohm thinks he caught it. That's the first thing. Second thing, so he keeps saying it was just overturned catch. It looks like it was not a catch to me, but whatever. I mean, it was right in front of him. But I still think you can be aggressive in your play calling and call a running play. And the other thing is if you start the idea with 3 possessions left that you're going to run a little bit, run on first down just to eat clock, maybe that changes the trajectory too. I mean,
to me, though, what the most frustrating part of this is that, in the moment you're thinking just because we're idiots, and we're not, we are football fans. We're not football, schematics, let alone like Purdue coaches, right? But like what you're thinking is run the clock. There are multiple ways to run the clock that isn't just running the ball, right? Like, for how many years did we slam our heads against the wall every time a bubble screen was called? But bless it, if I was just called like yelling for a bubble screen at that moment, right? Or like a creative way, even if it's not, handing the ball off to King Daru, a creative way to get King Daru, the ball on the flat while he's staying in bounds, right? There is a way in the air to guarantee that, a quick completion while the clock turns, right? A safe completion.
A screen pass is a running play, basically.
Yeah.
For the purposes that we were asking for one.
Well, how about this? How about this? And maybe I'm being, again, naive. I am a fan, but a jet sweep. I mean, something just to get some motion. Not only was Purdue not calling run plays or passes in the flat, but they were very vertical routes. To me, you're going right into the strength of Penn State. Those defensive backs are damn good, and they could go one-on-one with Purdue all day long.
Yeah,
they just had athletes. They have very, very good defense.
Was it that made you feel old this time? Was Porter's kid, Tracy Porter's kid?
Yeah,
he's a stud. He's an NFL player. I mean, and Purdue kept attacking him. And again, like Aiden O'Connell, a 70%, 75% completion, quarterback, a very safe quarterback, down to 50%. His worst completion percentage, I think, of like a major, volume game of his career, right? It's because strength against strength. And in the end, it was strength against strength, and Purdue like drew it even. And the big things that kind of flipped the game were the game with a fumble. I mean, in the moment I was saying this, that fumble at the end of the half, followed by a 3-play drive for a touchdown, 2 or 3 play drive for a touchdown, right? That's
with 3 missed tackles on the same play.
At the very least,
missed tackles on the same play. If you look at that,
at the very least, that's a 10-point swing.
Right.
That what should have been 3 points, 3 to 7 points in Purdue's favor, ended up being 7, guaranteed 7 for Penn State. Yep. And so it's like, you can't just give Penn State a free 10-point swing. You can't give them 7 free points when you're about to be in the red zone. I mean, that didn't. So technically, Purdue went, 3 for 4 scoring touchdowns in the red zone, 1 field goal. So Purdue scored all 4 times they were in the red zone. The problem is they didn't count that one. Where was it Brock Thompson? No, it was TJ Sheffield. Had the ball, broke through the red zone, should have been down. That should have been
carrying the ball in his right arm, and he should have in his left. And that play that's been addressed a bunch of times by Brohm this week and other people. The funny thing about that one is a kinder, gentler Jeff Brohm emerged last year at times, right? We started seeing it with the way he, didn't yank people right away, but he gave Sheffield another shot pretty quickly, right? I mean, I think he was back in the game. I think he waited probably a quarter full time, but middle of the third quarter, Sheffield was back in. The funny thing is Rice looks really, really good to me. And Brohm talked about, he said he's just not prepared right now because he's missed so many practices in camp because of lingering injuries. But I like the way Rice looked. I like obviously Jones looked great. I would like to see more Tracy on the play. And
can we first like focusing on the running game, it's like Tyrone Tracy, like just give him a shot, right? And especially as a receiving back, like give him a shot, especially if you need to make quick completions.
So here I've got a theory about all this stuff where Jeff Brohm, and I talked a bit about this in the post game, that Jeff Brom's first game woes continue, right? That Oregon State kind of looks like just this aberration right now. Obviously, Brian led them to a victory in the COVID year with a very different type of game plan, very, very steady, very patient at the end of the game. It's easy to do that versus Iowa. It's not easy to do that versus Penn State. But there are many things. For one, why not? And I'm not trying to be a smart aleck or funny. Again, I was racking my brain. Brohm is a lot more creative than me. But if you know that the clock is your enemy, right? Or the clock is your friend if you can get the clock to start melting or get them to use some timeouts. Why not handle first down almost like a goal line set and bring in all those big guys? He had Mabau, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, in a couple times at tight end, especially down in short yardage down on the goal line.
Yeah.
Why not handle one of those first downs? Like say, okay, our goal is to get 4. We're going to pretend the goal line's 4 yards away. We're just going to run smash mouth at them, right? Even if they're loading the box, you say, okay, we're going to try to beat you with numbers here, right? But it doesn't matter. None of it matters right now. It's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme. Like I said, coming in, it's just not. It's not a season definer at all.
You let one that could have been real nice kind of slip through.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's like none of all the first games the first game losses are similar to that, right? Like Louisville. I mean, like right out of the gate, nobody was expecting it, and Purdue hung with Lamar Jackson, right? I mean, like it's like Purdue does this in the first game. Purdue
Northwestern looked like the better team to me, like in that opener, right?
That was yeah.
But yeah, it's I mean, onward and upward. The thing that there is a contingent of clearly anti-Brohm Purdue fans, which is very interesting,
strange.
Very weird to me, right? I think you guys are a lot better about analyzing stats, but the one thing that's really easy to analyze here as a Purdue fan, if you've been around for longer than 4 seconds, is Purdue's history in football. And when you have a guy that's exceeding, the program's different. Even if they had a bad season in there, that regardless of where you attribute that, Brohm's better than the Purdue average in Purdue football history, right? Brohm he's close to getting up, like I think you guys both talked about, getting that top 3 conversation, top 4 conversation all-time Purdue coaches. If he can have one or two more good seasons. And when I say good, I mean 7 or 8 win seasons. I don't think 9 or 10 even has.
I mean, to me, like I said the last time, in terms of context, this was such a critical period, just because of timing, right? Because of everything changing. It's so important for Purdue to have a meaningful football team, and Purdue did not have one. Purdue was one of the 5 worst Power 5 teams, in the last 4 seasons, like in the 4 seasons kind of preceding him. And so with that context, and with the fact that Purdue's going to rake in all this money because they're on such solid footing, like I'd say he is pretty clearly and pretty easily in that, one of the most important coaches just in any sport in Purdue history, right? Yeah. Again, not wins and losses. You want to see more kind of signature wins, right? But
so let's speaking of that.
But anyway, it's like, you can still, like, the point is you can still, like, criticize, right? It's like we can still say, man, I get that you don't want to run the ball. I get that, looking at watching the post games and the interviews, it's like it's pretty clear he doesn't think that Purdue can run the ball.
Right.
But the two things are kind of run counter to that. One is that I think one of the strengths coming out of this game is Purdue's offensive line. I feel great about Purdue's offensive line. I mean, like, they
played 12 offensive linemen and 12 defensive linemen.
The trenches. This is the best trenches since Michael's days on Purdue's campus, right?
Yep. Well, and I think that, like, I look at this game and I don't have any major concerns out of any of the units. I mean, Penn State is a quality program who recruits, whether they are successful this year or not. Who knows?
Whether they're executing or not, right?
But, like, they get a different tier of athlete in the door than Purdue does. And I think Purdue handled themselves very well, especially, as Anish said, against their defensive line. Yeah. Their front 7 is pretty good, pretty athletic, and Purdue did a good job. I think we're talking more about decision-making and mistakes, things like fumbles, things like not tackling with proper form, that sort of stuff, rather than, holy crap, like we line up next to these guys and we're outmatched.
Let's think back to a game not long ago where Purdue really got manhandled. That TCU game a couple years ago, right? Purdue was absolutely manhandled in the trenches.
That's a physical Southern team that came up against these soft Northern boys.
Yep, and this game didn't have that feel at all, right? No. Even the Northwestern game, I think Northwestern's offensive line was really strong, and I mean they have a couple pros on that Northwestern team in the offensive line, on the offensive line. But one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about, I wanted to hear your take on this. Maybe do it publicly. I don't think I warned you I was going to do this, but I still want to do this.
Oh, okay.
No, it's not that big of a deal. But the media.
Your eyes, they're my favorite part of you. Your eyes.
Thank you. Yeah, you don't ever.
It's not my favorite part.
Oh yeah, boy.
I know. My favorite part is what I spam to the chat every now and
then. Right. If everybody
same for me, actually.
Yeah. Well, so I've seen two different national media sources talk about it's pretty much a done deal. Jeff Brohm is going to go to Louisville at the end of the season. Okay, and so I said it to somebody. I said it maybe on Twitter because it was brought to my attention by somebody very athletic talked about it. And I think somebody from CBS talked about it. I'm not sure. Tom Fornelli talked about it actually on his podcast. Okay. So you've got two sources. I think Fornelli's a moron this year. I don't usually think he is, but I think he's got some pretty bad takes going. It's going to be me or him. I think they're going to be left standing at the end of this because I think that's what it is. It's mano a mano. But you have two national people talking about, Jeff Brohm's going to go to Louisville. I think it's fun stuff to talk about because Brohm threw gasoline on that fire by answering that really vague about how much he loves Louisville and all that stuff. Do you guys have any feeling, any gut at all that says, I think there's a really, really good chance that he's going to be at Louisville at the end of this season if Purdue does this? Like, is there a scenario where you'd say, that's the one that would push him out the door?
I think Jeff Brohm loves Purdue loves Louisville the same way that we love Purdue. It's a part of his family. It's a part of his upbringing. And I think you can never deny that. However, looking at the job today versus the job, 2-3 years ago, we're in an entirely different climate. And Louisville is one of those teams that's probably going to be left out. Whenever this becomes a super conference or whenever it comes to super conferences, no one is making a play to bring Louisville on, not even because of their basketball team. So you're looking at leaving a Big Ten school that's fairly secure now in its position for a team that could look more like a MAC school 5 years from now. Right. And I think, that's got to play some influence in his view. Honestly, if I'm Louisville, I throw a line out to Jeff Brohm and see what sort of bite there is. I realize there's not going to be much, and then I hire Brian Brohm.
Right.
That's what I do.
And so that's the way. There is another one there. He's not, and honestly, I would kind of like a new kind of voice in the, in the offensive coordinator spot. I'd like a new kind of, some kind of new flavor. That would be nice. And just trying to see it because it is, it is. We always know that this is going to be Jeff's offense, right? No matter who's going to be in that spot, it's going to be Jeff's offense, and it's been nice that he's been able to have somebody that he's very comfortable with.
Yeah,
but
trust
but that's the play, right? Like if you're Louisville, is that you put the feelers out. Jeff says, I don't know, maybe, and then you bring another one home and, it's kind of an up and coming because Louisville becomes it's again, kind of luck of the draw, right? Pitt, Louisville, West Virginia, all of these teams end up on the wrong side of the line. Right. And that's probably the biggest thing that works in Purdue's favor. Again, that's why I said it's so fortunate, I should say, that Purdue had Brohm at this time because it's such a transition point and, it doesn't look like the NFL is going to have much appetite. Looking at Baylor's old coach down at Carolina, it doesn't look like the appetite for college coaches is going to be there, much anymore.
I wonder about that. There's always an owner that seems like he seems to go through the process. Like, I'm going to be the guy to get the right college coach, right? Doesn't it feel like NFL owners think that way? They're like, okay, it didn't work there, but we've got the spot.
Carolina's owner, I think, might be the richest owner in the NFL now. He's new, he just bought the team, and so it's like a new billionaire who just bought this brand new shiny toy is going to outsmart everybody.
It's like Jay Money, right? Really,
a
new billionaire.
When that happens, though, they hire Urban Meyer, right? Yeah. They don't hire Purdue's head coach.
Yeah,
I think then he's safe from the NFL. I think Louisville has to make a run. If I'm a Louisville fan, I have to hear rumors of them going after Brohm.
And honestly, like, and so we're all bringing this up because Louisville got hammered by Syracuse, who happens to also be on Purdue's schedule. And so, I tweeted this earlier, Louisville being bad or Syracuse being good is like neither of those are great outcomes for Purdue. Right. Now, I think that Purdue can still handle Syracuse, but like, you're kind of hoping that that was a little bit of an aberration. Right.
Right. And watching that score come up, I was like, okay, is this an indictment of Louisville? Or is this just like, wow, Syracuse is for real, and this is the Dino Babers team that we all thought he would have when he was hired? We all, everybody.
The dumpster fire.
We still love Dino Babers, though.
Yeah,
I mean, so here's an interesting thing that Kyle Seago brings up. Surely Brohm can't be unaware of what's happening at Nebraska with Frost, not putting him on the same planet as coach, which is I understand your point here,
right?
But the risk of ruining that
favorite son
relationship, exactly, the bustling metropolis of Lincoln.
I'm telling you, man, that place shocked me. That like when I visited Lincoln a little bit ago, we passed through on the way to Wyoming, and I did not have the experience I thought I would have. I mean, it's in Lincoln, and it is a city, and there were some similarities with Louisville. Number one, they're both Adidas schools. There's red, and I'm an idiot,
Good.
And so that was something. But the feel of the facilities, the fact that they are right in, it's not a college town. Lincoln's. Right. I mean, I know everybody talks about Lincoln is the state, but it's a city, and it's not.
I think
like
somehow recruiting to Louisville is going to be a lot easier than recruiting to to Lincoln, Nebraska. But the other thing, I mean, that is the downside of the statue job, right? Which is like what happens if it doesn't work,
I mean, I think we've seen plenty of examples of it working out, and plenty.
Oh, sure,
right.
I don't think that's going to factor into this.
But to your point, Michael,
in his thought process, right?
To your point, it is like you're jumping from the pros to kind of 1AA there. And again, it's not to compare Louisville and Purdue's athletic department, which we could do later, but it is like just where you are on the Big Ten line, right?
So I'm gonna be devil's advocate. There's one point that I think Louisville has Purdue licked on, and that is their NIL. When every time somebody says, wow, they really had the NIL infrastructure set up. I don't know if I said this to you guys or my friends off recording, but every time it says that it's a program that used to cheat and now it's okay. It's legal. And so Louisville is clearly one of those programs. They've had a history of it. And so their NIL program was set up really, really well. They had the machinery in place. And according to what I'm hearing, they've had very, very good fortune on the NIL side. Purdue is doing everything they can to catch up now. You guys saw a bunch of ex-Purdue football players who have made money. I don't know if they're going to be faces of that Purdue group, or if they're actually, if Breeze gave a whole bunch of money. I really don't understand any of this stuff. All of it's still a mystery. But it was a big deal, I guess, a big shot in the arm for Breeze to be involved. And I think Aiken Odell's involved and a couple other
it's, and the threat is always going to be there. And so you're kind of hoping that Scott Satterfield pulls it together. And so go Louisville, go is really what I'm trying to say. But the other big thing is, like, in terms of what Purdue has to do, no, I don't think that there's much that there's anything, there's anything that Purdue, does. Like, nothing in Purdue's season is, I think, going to impact that decision, right?
No, I agree. And I think Michael's comparison of how much Brohm loves Louisville, I think, is accurate. And it is a family affair. I've played golf with Oscar, and you can tell they're still Louisville guys. So I think you can stay a Louisville guy and then go and create Purdue.
Yeah, recruit them to West Lafayette.
Exactly. I love
it. Put them in black and gold and bring them into the Big Ten. Bring them to the big leagues. That's it.
By the way, Ultimate Boiler a minute ago, it's been a few minutes, in the margin said, I don't remember a bubble screen. I actually do remember a bubble screen because Anish yelled out, bubble screen, bubble screen, bubble screen right after it happened. I think it was to Jones on the right side, if I remember correctly. And I think it was early in the third quarter. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yes. Fantastic, because it actually worked. Right. Usually when Purdue runs bubble screens against these larger opponents, it does not. Again, these are easy ways to do it. Okay, first we crossed off. It's the Purdue podcast bingo sheet that you're pulling out. We've already crossed the Louisville thing off. Here we've got to get to this because we mentioned Charlie Jones. He is so good. He is so excellent. He's Purdue's wide receiver number 1 this year. 150 yards in one game and 350 yards in one season at Iowa. And Iowa fans have the gall to go out there and say that Purdue cheated to get him. First of all, Purdue, are we serious here?
Right,
we just finished talking about this.
Right.
And second, why there is your answer. There, you joke of a program. Right. Frauds. This entire fraudulent program. All you're doing is running mail fraud. You're running mail fraud for 9 wins a season, 8 to 9 wins a season. Congratulations to you.
What a joke. What a joke that they didn't see any upside to Jones to use him more. I mean, we thought that was the case coming in, but then you see Charlie Jones doing what he's doing, where he's catching almost everything that comes his way, and then he's deadly with the ball in his hands.
They don't have the ability to use a guy like Jones. That's been
right. That's the whole thing.
So why would you go? Don't go there. It's like
why would you do it in the first place? Is what you're saying?
Just pull up tape of them getting to 7 points with 2 safeties and a field goal, and say, "This is why." Do you need anything else?
FCS school. Against an FCS school.
Jesus, what?
I mean, Iowa it's incredible how they're able to win 7+ games.
It's mail fraud. All they're doing it's tax fraud. That's all they're doing. That's how it's money laundering. They're money laundering. They're not making widgets. They're an NFT factory. They're pumping out 9 wins a season, and they're producing nothing
for a virtual football card.
That's it. That's all you get. Congratulations. Yeah. Did we have fun? Congratulations.
Hey, I got a question from Twitter that I think is applicable because it's a good follow-up right here. The Noodle says, beside Charlie Jones, which player's performance last week was the most promising to you guys?
I mean, again, like my answer, what the biggest upside and the biggest kind of, watching in person, but also it's the thing that you get watching in person, like I think is kind of route run, like you see route running a lot better. I hate the angle that we get on TV. And so, because you can't see the action, right? You can't see routes developing. You can't see the quarterback making actual reads. You can't really see holes that well. So this is my plea for the, behind the line kind of view. But when you're in person, you can see it's like Charlie Jones would be like, was the guy that kind of stood out, most clearly. When you're watching highlights, like extended highlights, when watching the game like on film, the best part about that is that you see the lines really well.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, like the fact that you saw and lines aren't something that when you're in person, you can see the number. You don't see the people kind of coming in and out. You don't really notice the numbers as much unless you're in the end zones. And so it's tough to keep track in person. So when you're watching on TV, when rewatching, that was the thing that like stood out the best. And it's not kind of one performance. It's just like the fact that Purdue is deep and trusts their trenches again. Like that's and can throw, continues their doing well through the air is like that's the good stuff.
We got to talk about Chris Jefferson, who
the pick six.
A fantastic, even outside of the pick six, he was solid.
He was good all day. Yeah. A lot of passes defended.
I believe he led the team in tackles. Did he? That might not be.
He was up there. I don't know if he was or not.
I mean, it was still, Graham, Trice were still kind of, dominating.
It's interesting. There are a couple plays where because Graham is doing so much. If you watch him, he is all over the field, and they're using him in different ways. He's dropping back in coverage. He's guarding guys in the flat. He's coming up, blitzing. Not enough as I would like to see, but that's just because he's playing really kind of a hybrid safety linebacker
spy.
role.
It's all you're just playing a spy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's it.
But on that Jefferson play, if you watch that, he set a legit block, and then he set a pick. Like with his hands up and just kind of ran interference.
Which always makes me nervous because that is the thing that gets called.
Put your hands up, everybody sees it.
Hands up, face them. Yeah. But like, okay, so I looked it up. Jefferson had 7 tackles, led the team. Number 2, do you know? Cam Allen.
Okay.
Oof. I don't know. He had
a couple missed tackles on top of that. The defensive backfield, as good as they were in coverage, you had Allen had 2 missed tackles. We had
Reese
Taylor had 3 missed tackles, and then you had
on the big one.
Kane had
on the
an
big one, it was Kane.
Yeah. But the thing is, they were all in position to make the play.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
And so I think this is curable.
I think when your 2 safeties have a combined 13 tackles between them, that's telling me that your safeties are being aggressive, because Purdue didn't give up a lot of big plays.
Right.
Being aggressive, they're in position. It's the first game of the season. You see stuff like dumb penalties and missed tackles and like those sort of like head mistakes. So I wish Cam Allen would have been wrapped up, especially that touchdown in the third quarter. But still, they made some good plays, and I was impressed by us.
And the offense looked great in the third quarter. I mean, coming out of halftime, the offense looked like charged.
That was a good counterpoint or counter punch by Brohm, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he had those guys ready to go, and in spite of the really poor ending to that first half, quickly they twisted it. They made it Purdue's game, and by the beginning of the fourth quarter, when you really watch this, my son and I watched it again, and I think it felt like, okay, this is Purdue's game now. Things had really, really, the momentum was really going Purdue's way.
And again, imagine if it wasn't. And again, the game wouldn't be played the same way, so you can't really do this. But imagine without that 7 points that you gifted Penn State. Imagine if you had another 3 or another 7 on the board. That end of half, that's free points.
Yeah.
And so it's like against a team like Penn State, I don't care how off kilter they are. I don't care how good Purdue is in the trenches. Like against a team like Penn State, when you're a team like Purdue, you cannot just give away give away 10-point swings like that, right? 10 to 14-point swings.
I mean, anytime you lose by, a possession, basically, you're going to look back and you're going to say, if not for this, if not for that.
Right.
And I think one of the things about this Purdue team that's very encouraging is that they're in this position where they're playing a program like Penn State. And I'm not a moral victory guy, but like this wasn't a thing where they were hanging on by a string the whole game and then just like lost at the end. We've seen that script play a number of times. They were controlling the game in the second half. And, that's good. It's like, okay, let's look for something positive to come out of this loss. That's a thing that's positive that comes out of this loss.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a I think your point completely, Michael. We've seen the games where you kind of foreshadowed this last week with the idea that I think you said that it's a different Purdue team because the margin for error isn't as thin. I think it was you who said that. And that was on display. The thing that everyone needs to keep in mind, okay, there are matchups that are good and bad for Purdue, right? Penn State has horses physically.
And the defensive backs, man, the pass coverage.
Right. I don't think this means Aiden O'Connell is going to be a 55 to 60% pass completion guy this season. I think it means he ran up against a team that has guys that on an island, they're really, really good. And we talked about thinking that idea. I still think after watching them, are they better than Wisconsin's defensive backs? To me, it's going to be a 2-horse race at the end of the season.
Well, I think Penn State's the best defensive backfield that Purdue will see. I don't think it's pretty close. And again, I think it was strength versus strength, and Aiden O'Connell and I should say the Purdue offense, until the last drive, kind of did until the second half of the fourth quarter, like did all that they could and put themselves in good positions. You're trying to tilt the board, in your favor at that point. And you could say the puke six kind of was the thing that offset that end of half's touchdown. But then at the end, once the other thing is like, this was another similarity that Brohm and Tiller have, right? Which is that their offenses, like because they're such aggressive offensive play callers through the air, like you need an aggressive defense that relies on takeaways when things are going your way, right? And the thing that they don't have yet is that, like, Tiller never really had it, and maybe actually for the Kyle Orton teams he did, was that sense of when the defense is tired, that playing into when you just need to buy more time. And just looking at that, the puke six was great, but the fact that you run 60 yards and you puke your guts out is one thing that's like, it's a sign that says that the defense is tired. By the time the last drive that Penn State has, for the go-ahead touchdown, like, that they're gassed, and that's going to play into it, right? And you really have to have, like, that has to play into how you call the offense, and that was the last thing that kind of swung in Penn State's
yeah, and that comes back to a problem that we saw last year that I was hoping was really gone, honestly, or maybe I was hoping the personnel could make or minimize it, and that is that you just keep allowing the other team to have shots at the defense, right?
Yeah.
Gosh darn it! Like, regardless of how hot and humid it is, because it was hot and humid, and there's a reason that Jefferson threw up. The conditions were kind of rough, but the fact you're like, okay, you're going to give 3 drives in a row. Penn State wasn't really doing much to say, we're taking this game away. They were
Clifford
doing the minute and a half, 2-minute drives as well.
Clifford has moments. Like, he has moments where you can see the talent and you can see him moving, keeping his shoulders square.
Yeah.
Like keeping his head downfield and making the completion. But wow, is he like lower half of the Big Ten in quarterbacks? And it's like, when you're Penn State, you can't keep playing that guy.
Right. Well, they can, because I think you talk about a coach that doesn't have any faith in the guys behind him. Franklin's got nothing. Like, he doesn't have any love for that.
Franklin has the next Saquon Barkley that actually, like, that was on the field.
He get in the game
for a couple. He had like 2 or 3 runs and like averaged 7 yards a carry.
Yeah,
he's a true freshman, 18 years old. And then he's got that 5-star. He's got that 5-star quarterback, behind him. Again, I'm glad we played Penn State this year and not, in the years to come.
But he's not playing them because there's growing pains that are going to come with playing those guys. And he doesn't want to lose 5 games this season, so he's playing like we've seen this before. But yeah, they're going to.
I mean, if they lose 5 or 6 games, I mean, is $1 billion buyout probably?
Didn't he just resign? Like,
he fired his agent and he hired Jimbo Fisher's agent, and so he has the Jimbo Fisher of the North contract. It's the best.
Goodness gracious! You guys saw we talked about this. Ed Orgeron had the best quote, the most honest quote in a press engagement earlier this week. And it's Anisha's dream. You can expound upon it, Anish, but I mean,
here's the thing. We all know that capitalism is a scam. And so if you give me money, like life-changing money to go away, I'm taking that every time. And so Ed, yeah, exactly. I'll leave. I will no longer bug you for $17.5 million. And so Ed was like, the AD called me in the room in his Ed voice. And
$17.1 million.
He was like, things are not going well. And in his Ed voice, he was like, even Stevie Wonder can see that, brother. And he was he's like, you've got $17 million on your contract. We're going to give it to you. And Ed's like, which door do you want me to go out of? And when do you want me to leave?
The refreshing thing is not that, like, I don't think I've ever heard a coach say that. Have you?
Because Ed realizes that that everything was in shape. Like, first of all, he got speaking of statue jobs, Ed, that guy, got to coach Louisiana State University to maybe the greatest football season of all time.
Right.
I mean, like, and you get to coach Joe Burrow, you get that staff together, you got those wide receivers, you had that defense. Like, it is in conversation for the greatest college football team of
clearly
all time.
One of the most fun in recent memory, if nothing else.
A lot of fun. Well, and he's not going to Ole Miss. You know what I mean? Like, this was the job.
Yeah.
That was his job. He did it, and he did it better than anybody has done. Anybody except Nick Saban has done any job in the history of college football. And so it's like, yeah, I'll take $17 million.
He got a ring and $17 million from the school that he has an unparalleled love for.
Yeah. It's the best. And he got to see Brian Kelly fail, his $100 million replacement. He got to see him fail the next week.
Which was wonderful. I think we all,
for all of us,
can just be united in the fact
that there are places we can all meet, and watching Brian Kelly fail is one of those we can all meet there.
I spent the second half of the weekend with the in-laws at the in-laws family. It was very wonderful in northern Indiana. They were all, former and semi-current Notre Dame fans, but I've converted them to Purdue first. It's great. It's a good time. But, Sam's grandma lives in South Bend, and is lifelong Notre Dame fan, so she'll root for she's the nice old grandma that roots for everybody, but roots pretty fiercely. And the amount, let me tell you, in South Bend, the number of TVs that were on Sunday night rooting against Brian Kelly, and we're still so happy that they had Marcus Freeman on their sideline rather than Brian
Freeman
Kelly.
Looked like he had that group prepared too. I mean, that was
I was trying to prepare I was trying to prepare them with my big college football knowledge, and I was like, this Ohio State team is just too good. They are one of the 3-4 best teams. They're 3-2 best teams in the country, and they're going to get stomped. And for that first half, Notre Dame, they matched them punch for punch, right?
Right. Pretty impressive for a team that's in transition, right? Because their quarterback, a lot of Notre Dame fans that I talked to are like, yeah, we're not real sure how good this guy will be starting a full season. So.
But also imagine that their coach lost a game and didn't throw anybody under the bus. It's wild how that can work.
It's crazy.
He was like, we've just got to go back. That was a great team across the sidelines there. We've got to get better.
Yep.
Brian Kelly was not prepared. South Bend did not prepare him for what the SEC media is going to do to him. It's a different thing. You're the only game in town, man.
Chubby alive. It's great.
So you saw that. I mean, so Michael's referring to when he scolded. This is in typical
It was such a dumb thing to
dominating
do.
Thing. They had a noon conference, a noon press conference, and the press didn't show up until 11:57, and he got all pissy about it. And one of the reporters was like, well, maybe if you win. And she was clearly saying that as a joke, but nobody enjoys joking with Brian Kelly. I mean, nobody. And Brian Kelly does not play that nice,
he doesn't have a sense of humor.
Guy.
No, he was mad. I said in our chat that he lost twice in week 1 because he has absolutely just bombed the media thing down there, which is such.
Let me ask you guys a question. I always wonder this. I get some weird Twitter interactions because we are Boiled Sports from IU fans at times that don't make any sense. I'm always like, why would you talk shit right now when you don't have anything to stand on? You're not in a position of power.
Yeah. What happened to LEO IU fans?
Yeah. Come on.
But no, Brian Kelly was not in a position of power to make the joke that all you media people need to be in place now because I'm running a tight ship and big things are happening. We got a new sheriff in town. He wasn't in that position. So he was like an IU fan, and then he got it just shoved right down his throat, which was awesome.
It's a different environment, man. It's a
down
different
south
environment.
And in Louisiana, coaching LSU in that purple, get out of here.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the other thing I'm railing against. Either you're 5 minutes early, and if you're on time, you're late. No, that's not how on time works. On time means you're on time. What are you talking about?
Also, they don't work for him. If he wants to start it at 11:55 and no one's there, then fine. It's his press conference. Do whatever.
But I think that point Anish said, though, that's it because they were state media in South Bend, right? He controlled the thing.
It's almost state media in West Lafayette, so it's friendly media.
It's close, and that's the thing. It's a hard job for some of our friends. We know these people that work
because
there.
There's no leverage, right? I mean, and you don't have the frenzy behind you to make it okay, to give you that license to push and push and push, right?
There's a skill to handling the media in the SEC, and I've seen a little bit of that up front.
Oh, you
being down here at
I
A&M.
mean, like your hometown A&M, Jimbo. I mean, like he's a pro.
Jimbo's a pro. Saban's a pro. Like these guys know how to like do
Leach?
that, and you do it by like you buddy up with the guy that's been around with his radio show for the last 40 years, and you have like your little inner circle, and they provide enough of an insulation, but you have to like you got to give like a little. Like Saban is very
call into Feinbaum every now and then.
And you just
you're not a bit helps.
You're not a dictator. Saban's not a dictator. Like Jimbo's definitely not a dictator because that dude knows that if he really starts going after it, like they'll run him out on a rail in no time. I mean, it's just a different environment. And Brian Kelly thinking that people care about him just because he's Brian Kelly. Like, I think he's got another thing coming, man.
I think Justin said this. I think Jay Money said this when he was hired, or it was you, Michael, one of you two. But it's a win-win because either Brian Kelly loses, and it's the funniest thing in the world, and Brian Kelly becomes the first coach since Jerry DiNardo to lose at at LSU, right? To not win a title, let alone be a failure at LSU. Or he wins, and we hate the SEC and everything. It's the funniest thing in the world because this idiot is going into the SEC and winning.
He will not. He's got 3 years. He's got 3 years, and then he is going to be like coaching Vanderbilt because there is no way that he's going to be successful. He doesn't have the tools. He doesn't have.
Speaking of people who controlled state media, I mean, Les Miles. Say many things you want about him. The one thing that he knew how to do is glad hand with the local media, right?
And recruit how to go into these kids' houses. And Brian Kelly doesn't recruit. His assistants recruit for him. So like, and
just call up Freeman to close it out. Wait.
Can't really do that, can we?
How about Tommy Reese? Oh, wait.
And if you're going to sit there and you're going to rip, the pride of Baton Rouge, like the pride of, the 8th Ward, whatever. I don't care. Like some local kid who's like been in the newspaper since he's been in the 8th grade. You're not like they're going to tell you to go screw yourself when you try to get that next class. I am taking such delight in his inevitable favor. I'm going to like savor it. I'm going to watch LSU lose with a cloth over my head to hide my shame from the Lord, just like I'm eating whatever that dish is that the Frenchie, the bird, the baby bird dish. Like it's just going to be amazing.
There's a lot of things I wouldn't eat that are served down in Creole country. So, Michael, are you in a position where you can give 5 more minutes? Or are you about done?
I've got about 15, and then
okay. Can we ask a couple questions via Twitter?
Rapid fire question time. Brought to you by Martin.
Okay. So this is a great question, and I don't think there's a real answer. It's the noodle again. It says, "Where's the best place to park for a night Purdue game if you want to get to the hotels out at 65 in less than 2 hours?"
I was so we had an Airbnb kind of mess up. So first of all, just a quick thing, the 26 and 65 exit is closed. So that makes that a nightmare. So we switched to an Airbnb on this side of like 5 minutes away from Purdue West, and it was beautiful.
Michael, do you have any suggestions?
No.
The moon.
I go into these games saying I'm not going to get to sleep till 3 a.m. Mrs. Boiler Dad said she was asleep by 2:40. I stay up because I'm wound up. I was asleep by 3:45 probably.
Just embrace the suck is my advice.
Yeah. So it's tough, guys. I don't know the answer. I think every year it's a shock to the good folks in the West Lafayette and Purdue police departments that there are fans there for the night game. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't mean
fans with cell phones too.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
So, I apologize to everybody that was messaging me because it was like I didn't.
Right. Yeah. Isn't that great? So I couldn't. I don't know if you guys are like this. You leave a Purdue game and then you're like 7,000 messages because you've barely been able to cobble together like 1-letter responses to 5.
I looked back at my timeline and one tweet went through and it was pain, and I'm pretty sure that was during the last drive. And so that's that kind of was fitting.
Yeah,
that was fitting. That's fine.
So let me. Here's another question from Twitter. This is let's see. John Rogers says at the end of the season, looking back, will Penn State have been the best opponent Purdue plays?
I still think Wisconsin is going
to be. Yeah, Wisconsin. Yeah, I think overall Wisconsin's better. We talked about the defense, so I think Penn State's defensive backs, like pass defense, is probably the best. Is definitely the best that they'll play. But Wisconsin's a better team.
But I think Penn State is a clear number 2. I don't think there's anyone close to Penn State, unless they like completely fall apart. But I don't see that.
Okay, this Brad Eban has a question. This one kind of hurts as I read, and I'll read it aloud here. Which part of the Handsome Hour is more misleading, Handsome or Hour? By the way, I love you guys. Please don't hate me. I've been dying to hear this discussed at length. And by the way, I think he's not been paying attention because I've told you guys this is something my dad has literally said to me. The Handsome Hour is neither handsome nor an hour.
The hour part is the joke. It's not. We can't do it, even though we just hit our hour mark and
very
we're
close.
Out. It's fine. We're close.
Yeah, we're in good shape. So, you guys have been a part of the Handsome Hour for. I wish I could tell you how long that the title existed, but you did up the handsome quotient, so that was nice. But I don't know the answer, and I think it's a hard thing to do. We have this running joke. If Brad,
stay handsome is not hard to do. The hour is hard to do.
Right. But we have the whole thing is a tidy 40 minutes. We've been saying that for at least 4 years. It's great, and I don't think we've ever had a tidy.
Yeah, yours are usually 30 minutes on your own. It's fine. Yours are under.
Downs started out at like 8 minutes.
Right.
Like they were perfect. And now when they show up in my feed, it's like 34 minutes.
Oh boy. And you say to yourself, nope, not that one.
It's the meat. Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, no, the hour for sure.
Yeah. So I can tell you that I'm probably going to try to do a pre-game on Friday just to discuss a little bit. One, we can close out here. I'd like to hear your thoughts on Indiana State. If you have any trepidation, do you think back to Ricardo Allen saving a game? Do you have any of that? Or do you just say,
I'd love that.
This better not be a close game?
No, I hate that callback. That was a terrible callback. Why would you make me remember this? I had that memory in my head.
It's in my head already, so yeah.
I had not thought of that since 5 seconds after it happened. So
do you remember that game? Because Indiana State had a good running back that Purdue could not stop all day.
Yeah. Which was like so typical Purdue of that era too. It's like if there's one good player, no matter how crappy the rest of the team is,
he's going to look like a Heisman candidate.
Like that's going to be their whole NFL tape is going to be against the Golden Black. Yeah.
Right. Wow. Anish, you have no concern? You feel pretty good?
I have no concern against Indiana State. I would hope that there's no concern. And it's interesting to see if we see
they squeaked one out versus North Alabama. Does that change your?
I think I'm okay. I think I'd be seeing what backups we can get into there and which backup quarterbacks we'll see. That'll be interesting.
Well, this is one. If you want to give there are a couple things you can say. Hey, Jeff, can we do this time? And one of them I would say is maybe he will because it's a different thing where you've got a clear starter early in the season. Let's bench AOC early. If they get up by 3 touchdowns. Let's see who's behind him, and that's the interesting thing. Do you use some of Brady Allen's reps now, or do you say we're going to see Alamo, we're going to see Burton? I think Burton obviously is going to come and run the offense. But
Burton is the short term, too, right? Yeah, like it's either Alamo or the kid. Brady Allen.
Yep.
And so who we sat next to Brady Allen's family friends actually, and they were talking about him and they're like, this is the best kid of all time. Like it's just Purdue fans have no idea. So it's gonna be fun.
So this is gonna be we're gonna have a good time in the next couple of years.
I think so. And so it's like I'd say let Alamo and Allen, take the show. And that's the difference between any of these last years is that this is the first time that Purdue has an undisputed number one, no questions asked starting quarterback. Nobody's going to have their feelings hurt when he starts again, next week. And so It's like, yeah, let's
okay. Here, I got one more question from me for both of you, each of you guys. This will be the last question, if you guys are okay with that. Mm-hmm. I want both of you to give me a player of the game for Indiana State. Just looking in your crystal ball, who's going to be?
Anish, you got to go first.
I'm Jalen Graham.
Okay.
Like, it's not like you're putting an NFL player against Indiana State, like, and he was all around everywhere. I mean, like, that's the first,
right? He looked really good against a bunch of 4- and 5-star athletes. So.
Defense is the first thing that kind of comes to me. I don't know how much they're going to break the first line, and so
will Jalen Graham score?
But if they do, I hope so. That'd be fun.
That would be awesome.
It'd be fun to see him with the ball.
Okay. Will Charlie Jones score?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thrice.
It'd be nice on special teams. I want to see that. I want to see that special teams anything.
Okay.
I'm going to go
with
your
player.
You know what? I'm going to go with King Doru.
I like it. And I can understand why you'd say that, right? You're like, okay, this is a game you should be able to run the ball, right?
Yes.
All right.
This to me is like the O-line, I think, did a good job against a very good Penn State front seven. And this is an opportunity for King Doru to get out in space and break 100 yards. To me, if he goes over 100, I'm going to go 121 is my number for him rushing yards. And if he hits that, I think that's a really good game.
And like, don't you think it would be a perfect kind of Jeff Brohm middle finger to everybody asking the running question, just to keep running, right. Yeah, just to run the ball down.
Oh, here's your damn running game. Here it comes.
Yeah, exactly.
My player of the game, I'm going to say Payne Durham, and I think it's going to be a lot of frustration is going to come out. He was bottled up a lot. He played a really good game with very limited opportunities, and O'Connell missing him on a couple chances too. So I think Payne Durham is going to have a monster game, and I think he's going to have a big. He almost did it, by the way, versus Penn State, where he breaks the tackle and he keeps going. So I think we'll see that. So
that was the thing I meant to bring up earlier. Man, Garrett Miller against a kind of pass, kind of against the defensive backs, against the pass defense that Penn State had. The loss of Garrett Miller was huge.
It was huge.
I mean, like, just the second kind of safety valve just to have underneath. Again, so you can't just put everything, against kind of Purdue's number one guy, right? Number one guy in the middle. So, and then the other thing, like, I hope King has a huge game, but like Horvath is actually been like a significant loss. You know what I mean? Like, I you see him making the Chargers. You see him, like, I mean, he's a real player, right? Mm-hmm. We saw him last year, but it's just like coming into the season, I guess that's one of the guys that I didn't realize would be such a big loss to the running game, and to the point where now, like, even with a good line, Jeff doesn't seem to have too much confidence in anyone kind of back there.
Well, he would. I mean, Horvath
not
would
like
get
he
the
had
hard
huge
yards,
confidence.
right?
Yeah. Not like he had huge confidence in Xander anyway, but like he was a weapon, and he
would use him to catch those short little passes out of the backfield.
And so it's like get Tyrone Tracy. Like, I want more touches to Tyrone Tracy. Like, if you get him receiving running back, you know what I mean? Like, it's
now's the time to do it, right? Let's tune that up in the next couple games. Right on. So, well, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Jared Gallimore, my pal, says Finneran's gonna have a day. Let's sure hope not, Jared. Let's hope it's not the Finneran day or the Aussie punter. Let's hope neither of them are too featured. In fact, I hope all we see is points after from Finneran. But thanks to everybody for tuning in live. Thanks to my co-host Anish and Michael. Godspeed to Michael's hummingbird. And thanks to everybody who tunes in week out.